Hut, and a good Friday to you all out there in the land of my racehorse. And I am Nick Hines, the Sarge, reporting for duty here on this beautiful Friday. And of course, the Laneway My Racehorse live watch party. Laneway going postward today in race number 1 at Santa Anita. Looks like a contentious cast of 9. Does he graduate? Let's hope he does. And before I go any further, I'd like to welcome in our team. Hannah Bloom, our social media correspondent. Of course, Joe Mishak, our operations manager. Joe Moran, our California racing manager. And a special guest, my longtime friend, clocker extraordinaire, breeder, horse owner, just about does it all. He's even a dog trainer, Bruno DiGiulio. We're going to get to Bruno a bit later on today, of course. We're going to go into some workouts, talk about the prospects that we have in the pipeline, of course, and probably heard the news in reference to Authentic, which we'll touch on that. We'll also go through workouts of Mo Mischief, who continues to train forwardly for Todd Pletcher up at Saratoga. Well, looks like a great day to win a race. Gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, how goes your Friday thus far? Hannah, I'm sure we're going to have some questions coming in, but
yes.
How has your week been thus far?
It's great so far. Excited to be back on the live. I've missed it the last few weeks, and I even have my hat on now. So I'm all
I
ready.
love it. I love the swag. We definitely are get in a position here. By the way, we had several that came on, of course, with our previous watch parties and said, hey, what about the swag? And we're working actually on getting some special guests and getting them involved in the shows as well. Of course, partners. And we've got so many partners, of course, involved in Laneway today. And Joe Mishak, obviously, I'm sure that many of the people that are tuned in right now on our watch party have heard some news in reference to a horse that's on the Kentucky Derby Trail. What say you?
Yeah, I mean, not a busy week at all, right? Obviously, very, very excited to add Authentic to our roster. We think the sky's the limit for this horse. He's still a little green around the edges. He's still got some learning to do, but I think that's exciting, especially with the September Derby. That you don't want a horse that's going to peak in May or June this year. You want that horse to peak in that first Friday or first Saturday in September. And very excited to bring him on board. Next race, obviously, is the Grade 1 $1 Million Haskell on June 18th. Got the services of big money Mike Smith to ride next out, so I know everybody's excited about that, and we're looking forward to seeing how the rest of the summer unfolds with Authentic.
Yeah, I just want to give a heads up as far as post time for the opener at Santa Anita. We're 28 minutes away. At first click, Laneway, not by anyone's surprise, he clicks in at 4 to 5 to start the wagering there at Santa Anita. It's closing weekend, by the way, out at the Great Race Place, so take full advantage. And hopefully not only some momentum for your bankroll with the Belmont weekend coming up, and obviously with the pandemic, and I'm hoping that you're all staying safe and healthy out there, but kind of the Triple Crown in reverse. So the first jewel of the Triple Crown tomorrow at 1 1/8 miles. It's a one-turn, 'tis the law. We can touch on the potential selections. I'm interested to hear what Joe Moran has to say, along with even Hannah. I know that she's been rather astute with her handicapping. But big weekend for the My Racehorse crew. And on the horse front, we've got Sigismund tomorrow, which we'll talk to Bruno a bit about that in his involvement as this horse comes back for trainer Norm Cassie. Power Up Painter for Linda Rice back on the turf tomorrow, coming back as a first-time gelding off of a bit of a respite. Then you talking about Practice, who made quite an eye-catching move on debut, getting Flavian Pratt for trainer Peter Miller. And, of course, Bella Chica, who hooked a buzzsaw from the Richard Baltus barn. But looks as if we've got 3 horses, potentially 4 horses, that could be sitting on graduation day, and it's a perfect time of year for that. So, yes, we've got a lot going on here at My Racehorse, and want to thank all of the fans out there that have tuned in. So, Joe, excited about Authentic. That's some wonderful news. And, of course, more information will be available. And we talked about potentially having a watch party next week and to get more close up and personal with those that essentially are the infrastructure of the Authentic group. But, Hannah, as we march toward the first race today with Laneway, I know there are some questions coming in, perhaps, and let's take a look and see what they have to say and what they're wondering out there in the land of My Racehorse.
Yes. We have a few questions about Laneway. This is a little longer. Nielsen, will Laneway have a change in running style today? He has not been able to pass horses down the stretch in previous starts. Will he lay a bit further off the leaders coming around the turn today? So Joe Jack, sure if you can speak to this one.
Yeah, well, I actually would delegate that to Joe Moran since he's out the tracks. He's Lane Way's last workout, and I know they kind of rated him back a little bit during his last work. So Joe, can you provide some insight there?
Yeah. And you know what? Even though with that work coming from off the pace, I do still think we're going to see him forwardly place, and I think that's going to be the plan. That's just his natural running style and getting back to the mile distance. You'll notice he took the blinkers off, so they put it back on, or put the blinkers on for the first time in a sprint last time, stretching back out in ground. He's going to be naturally more forwardly placed. He was up on some fast fractions in that 5.5 furlong sprint. So personally, in my opinion, I think we're going to see him forwardly placed. Whether that's on the lead or right off, there are a few horses stretching out in distance as well. But I don't think we're going to be far off, if not on the lead.
All right, and I just wanted to mention that with Bruno, we're going to come back with you, Bruno, and obviously have an opportunity to understand the workouts a bit better, and we look forward to your analyses. And in the meantime, make a few bucks. I know you're playing out there on the right coast at Belmont.
I got beat out of the pick 5.
Ah, geez. Got to get that back, though. We got Lane Way coming up in the opener. Hopefully he's a potential single. So, Bruno, stay tuned. And for the fans out there, understand if we bring Bruno in, it'll be after the Lane Way race. And then we'll kind of delve into the workouts. We'll talk more about Authentic, of course, in addition to Mo Mischief, and do some compare and contrast with Honor AP, the winner of your Santa Anita Derby. So, Bruno, sit tight. And back to Hannah. How about a few more questions before we kind of get into the rhythm of this opener, which is just 23 minutes away. Lane Way still currently 4-5.
Yes, I would say today so far it's much more excitement and enthusiasm towards the race. So please send in those questions. We'd love to answer them live. This one's kind of fun, Moran. I think you'll appreciate this question. He's talking about the opener song.
Oh, that is not me. I wish I could play a guitar, but rhythm does not come in my genetics. I'll say that, to say the least.
I wish you could answer. I wish that was you. We have
It's never too late to learn, that's for sure.
I wish.
Yeah.
17 would have been a perfect time for you to take that up too.
Yeah. I said I was going to learn a language on quarantine too, and you know what? It just went by too fast.
And then we have another question from James Hamill. Hi all, why is it that horses can't try the grass in training before entering a race? Is it strictly to conserve the lawn? I like this question a lot.
Yeah, I can take that as a former trainer. Unfortunately, because of the fact that they try to contain or say maintain the turf course, they just don't let any horse go out. You actually have to have been qualified. From time to time, you'll see, say, a Richard Mandela Hall of Famer such as Neil Drysdale. They might actually slip a maiden out there on the grass, but a horse that's actually had a start or two. But generally, horses that work out on the turf course, it is limited to horses that are stakes prospects or horses that are declared stakes horses, or you'll have 100 horses on a given day that would actually work on the turf course. And, it's a little unfortunate because, in this day and age, you would think with track expansion, and I know land value, especially out here in California, is so great that in order to increase tracks, it's going to cost money and it takes up space. But it'd be nice if they had multiple turf courses so the horses could actually have the opportunity, because I've always believed, and I'm sure many of you do, all four of us would have to agree, that turf racing is generally safer racing.
Yeah.
I want to answer one more quick question. Lorraine is asking, will this race be on TV? It will, but we will also be live streaming it here. So please stay tuned and watch with us.
All right. Well, Lorraine, where is Lorraine, by the way? Where is she?
She did not say where she is watching from.
Yeah, it'd be great for the fans out there, if you're tuning in on this watch party, just go ahead and let us know where you're from. I'd love to hear the fact of because this is obviously eclectic. We've got owners from all facets of life. I mean, this isn't and that's the point that we talk about with My Racehorse, about being a franchise owner. You have an opportunity to come in at a minimal cost to be involved in such a wonderful opportunity. And as we talk on that note, of course, with the news that I touched on with Joe Mishak, Salem, New Hampshire. All right, Pittsburgh, Doug De Niro. Is that really Doug's last name, De Niro? Because if it is, that is an awesome thing. You'll never go broke being De Niro. That's for sure. All right, so we want to get back to authentic, Joe Mishak, and or are we? Are we going to go back, or are we going to save it for later? You tell me.
We'll go with Bruno.
Okay. All right, so we'll actually say that for a little later in reference to that. We were going to actually look at that San Felipe victory. So again, going back to the micro shares and the opportunity of being a franchise owner, I know as a child growing up, my dream, of course, and I was able to attain that dream having been a former trainer, but being around these horses and having the opportunity in light of the pandemic, I think now that we're kind of getting back to semi-normalcy, Joe Moran, by the way, tell us what's happening at the track. I know that I saw an email that went out in reference to Los Alamitos as far as allowing spectators. What's the current status at Santa Anita in regards to owners, and what have you heard across the nation?
Well, yeah, right now at Santa Anita, they are not allowing any access during race day. They are allowing those that have a horse working on that day that have an owner's license to come out in the mornings. The gates will open at 6 a.m. for those. You have to get put on a list. You're separated on the far right-hand side on the clubhouse past the wire. You have to pull up. You have to wear your mask. You get your temperature taken. And then you have a restricted area that's separated from all the trainers, all the riders, and horses. But at least they'll get you out there a little bit. So I was out there 2 days ago and got to see a good amount of our horses and got some good videos and pictures of them. And it was nice to finally be out there again. That's for sure.
I also heard the news that Tiz Magician is back in training. Is that right?
Yeah, Tiz Magician returned this weekend on Sunday. He got a few days on the training track, and yesterday was his first day back on the main track galloping. He sure looked good. He put on some good weight, I think, and he was able to stay in some decent shape where he was at, getting under a Western saddle under a little untraditional training, but allows him to keep in shape a little bit so he didn't lose too much fitness coming back.
No, I love that. And that's the point. We always talk about, different sports and areas, but the one thing about horse racing, it's a 365-a-day-year season. So you have to respect the likes of a Hall of Fame trainer like Richard Mandela to call a timeout when given the opportunity, because there's so much money to be made throughout the year. And obviously with the rigors and the pressures of 3-year-olds, for example, because of the Derby Trail, as we've come to find with the Hall of Fame trainer Bob Baffert, Charlatan, Nadal, both currently on the sidelines. Let's hope that Nadal would potentially make it back from that condylar injury. And then Charlatan, I wouldn't imagine we'd probably see him until the fall. So, Hannah, any other interesting questions that came up?
Not yet. So I will keep keeping an eye out on if we get more questions.
All right. So we're about 16 minutes to post. And at this time, we have an opportunity to kind of reflect on Lane Way's most recent race, and we had the watch party that day. Obviously, it's always a little disappointing when you don't win, but the good news is here's a horse who's had 4 starts. He's never been out of the money with 4/3. Today he will debut on grass. We'll get into those grass stats, but let's turn the calendar back here, shall we, to May 15th, and that day he had added blinkers for the first time. He will be removing them today. Flavian Pratt on the re-ride, and as we go back and watch the replay, I wanted to go to Mishak on first note. As you're watching this race, Joe, do you think this horse settled as you would like a horse to settle?
Yeah, I think he did it. He was eager, certainly put the blinkers on. I didn't have an issue, obviously, going 5.5. I think that's, not his preferred distance. So he showed enough speed, and that's why I think that, Joe Moran talked about potentially being on or close to the lead today. He does have it, or he does have the ability to sit off the pace. And and a point I want to make about your four starts, all in the money, yet to break the maiden. I think it's a good point to throw out there to our fans and to those watching, is that not all horses win their first, second, third, fourth starts. Obviously, we want to win, right? We want to win every race, no doubt about it. But let me give you the names of some horses, and I'm not comparing Lane Way to them. I hope he gets there. But horses that took four or more starts to break their maiden. How about Breeders' Cup Mile winner Tourist? How about Kentucky Derby winner Orb? How about last year's Malibu winner Omaha Beach? All took 4 or more times to break their maiden to figure things out. So, Nick, I think you can probably enlighten on that from a training perspective, that the light bulb doesn't always come on early on in a horse's career, and depending on how a trainer changes things up. I know you're a big fan of the tourist angle of getting a horse on the turf, and hey, we would love for Lane Way to turn out, and there's no guarantees, but he's ran very credible against 3 Kentucky Derby prospects. Obviously a couple of them have fallen off the trail with injuries, which you just mentioned, but no, there's no about getting defeated by those horses. It's no, I'm a loss for words because those horses are very nice horses.
Yeah, I think the key is that we've always felt collectively as a group that Lane Way has always been he's been the alpha male. I remember looking at him at the OBS March sale back in 2019, and if I were to be there with Hannah, she would have probably needed that little bookshelf behind her to step up onto, because he was just an imposing figure. And not to take anything away from your height, Hannah, but it's a beautiful thing. Bottom line is, he is the type of horse that, it's kind of like a wrestler when he goes into the ring and he feels like he's going to be the king of the ring, and he meets somebody else that punches him in the mouth. So sometimes when you get that alpha male mentality, not only did he face Nadal first time out, but he came back and he had to run against, Charlatan. And we obviously know what the end result was, but he never quit trying. And you have to recall, in that second career start, he stepped on his shoe. So all in all, I think today, the pace is going to be much more leisurely for him. I expect him to be forward. Word on the street that Munnings Pilot, who has been breezing with, and Joe, I know you know this, as you peeked over the fence there at San Luis Rey, had actually been breezing with our own Vertical Threat, who seems to be moving forward. What can you tell us about Munnings Pilot and what you've heard?
Yeah, Munnings Pilot, he got back-to-back B-plus workouts from Clocker Andy Harrington. They were both very good. And the comment noting Vertical Threat, where they were both kind of geared down and they were going 59 and change in that work. So very positive work. Coming out of one sprint, you would have to expect him to kind of be on his toes and show a little speed. I don't know if he's going to go guns blazing, but I definitely think he'll be one that's going to be involved early on in the race with us.
All right. On that note, we've got audio from the paddock there at Santa Anita. I'm not quite sure who it may be. It could be Michelle, could be Peter, could be both, could be Tom Quigley. But let's send it out to the great race place for some paddock analysis. We're 13 minutes away from the opener. You're watching the My Racehorse Watch Party live here on a Friday.
there. So good job for you, including the 7 touchdown Brown for Rafael Becerra, who's been a heavy push on the handicapper show.
If I'm going to spend that kind of money, I want to take a shot at a little bit of a price. Okay, we're going to be back. We'll take a closer look after the post parade. At this point, though, the Stronach 5 is about to kick things off, and they are down at Hallandale Beach at Gulfstream Park. I almost said Golden Gate Fields. Let's head out to our friends at Hallandale Beach, Gulfstream Park, to kick off the Stronach 5.
Time for the Stronach 5 and the Friday feature. And they're off. Swirling Candy begins nicely. A much better start indeed for Poseidon's Passion on the far outside. Song River has speed down at the inside, and Fly On Angel mixing it up. 3 across the course.
All right, so as you are aware, you can see that the Stronach 5 is actually in progress. And what happens with the Stronach 5, as they go from track to track, they're doing what they have to do to fit their time slots. So we're going to essentially come back to us here, and we can talk a little bit more about the handicapping as they'll call for riders up. But Laneway, even money. Joe Moran, are you surprised to see that he's even money at this stage of the game?
No, when I saw the morning line come out, just based on the competition that he's faced and the numbers that he ran, I'm drawing a blank on where I heard this information from, and I believe it was from Randy of Triple Clowns, or it might have been Jeff Chapman from Santa Anita that was telling me that on a DRF podcast they were talking about Lane Way, and they brought up how he's the best maiden 3-year-old right now in the country, just based on pure competition that he's faced and the numbers that he's run. If he matches some of these numbers, if he takes to the turf, we'd have to think he's going to run another big race. And ultimately, he's got to get that, winning kick home and be on the winning end of it. But I definitely think he has the ability to do it.
All right, and as they parade out of the paddock there, and it's a beautiful day. On the cooler end from what we're accustomed to. A little bit of that June gloom is burned off out there in Arcadia, California. But I wanted to touch on the Into Mischief turf statistics. I know that Joe Moran, you've done some homework in reference to that, and obviously when it comes to Into Mischief, and I sent that little article over to Joe Mishak yesterday. When he entered stud back in 2009, Into Mischief was standing for just 7,500. Well, we all know what he's standing for today, and it's worth every penny. And a big shout out to Mr. B. Wayne Hughes of Spendthrift, and we are blessed to be part of a Spendthrift Nation and a partner as well. It should be an exciting summer, and as you all know, we've got a big weekend coming up, as stated. Sigismund tomorrow, Power Up Painter tomorrow. You're talking about practice as well as Bella Chica out here on the left coast. So, Moran, what are those stats on Into Mischief? Obviously, first time Papa Mandela on the turf, 17% with his progeny over the course of the past calendar year. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, Into Mischiefs, I'll bring it back. When we were at the OBS March sale and we purchased Mo Mischief, actually, we interviewed Todd Pletcher just about his experience with Into Mischiefs and kind of what he thought about him. And his favorite thing was they run on everything. And why they're so attractive at sales is because they're so athletic looking that they can take to all these surfaces. They can sprint, they can route, they can kind of do it all. Specifically on the turf, Into Mischiefs are going to have more success routing. They actually hit at 15% from 927 runners. In his last 100 starters, he's had 35 on the grass. 4 of 17 have won routing on the turf, and 8 out of that 17 were in the top 2. So they're pretty consistent. He's got 2 decent runners that are currently running on the turf right now, Bemis Boy and Sambayu, that's trained by Todd Pletcher. So, based on numbers, they really do it all. As long as he takes to it and is comfortable, which we think he really will based on his build and his motion, that he should take right to it.
All right. Well, hopefully the key to him with those blinkers coming off after that one race experiment is that he'll actually settle. What's interesting is the house handicappers, they don't pick him on top outside of John White, which I've always respected his handicapping. But do you kind of feel like, I'm going to ask Joe Mishak this question as we look at a post parade, and we'll get more into the questions and the shout outs. Deborah Grzazik out there. Boy, she is heavily involved with the Philly 4, Mo Mischief, American Harris, etc. But Mishak, obviously you were a Philadelphia guy, and back in the day the Cowboys kind of owned the Philadelphia Eagles, but not so much anymore.
I was ready for that today.
What about the psyche of Lane Way? I mean, what's the anticipation? I mean, do you feel like we're in a situation where, I hate to use the term now or never, or put up or shut up time? Is this his day to really shine?
Yeah, I do believe it is. I mean, we're pretty even keeled around here, and we're optimistic. We want to win every race. We understand when other horses step up and beat us, like last couple times that have happened with Laneway. He's ran good races. He's ran 3 80+ buyers, which would have won 70 to 80% of all maiden races in the whole country. So you take this horse outside of California, he probably is graduated by now and is moving on to his other conditions. So yeah, I do believe this should be his day. He should have every right, assuming he breaks well and gets into a good rhythm. And you're at the stage of the game where the horse has to respond, and we don't know until they do. But I don't see any reason he shouldn't here.
Yeah, I feel just like you. I think when you consider the fact that we talked about the turf opportunities, and there's a good look at Munning's Pilot. Richard Baltus is high on this horse today. I'm a little surprised to see that he's 8-1 on the board, but my anticipation is, and there's the X factor at Macedonian Ruler, who I think will likely need a race and is quiet on the board. But I think we should get a comfortable trip unless Umberto Rispoli decides to send Munning's Pilot. I hope he doesn't. I hope Lane Way establishes a nice, comfortable lead. Then he can accelerate, because we all know he has a turn of foot. Hannah, any other interesting questions come across?
Yes, I have one from Amy in Cincinnati, Ohio. 5 other horses in this race have had starts on turf. Will that give them an advantage since Laneway has never run or trained on the turf before?
Joe Moran?
I mean, just like anything else, I think it does. Just like a horse, routing for the first time and facing horses that have routed before are going to have an advantage. With his experience and having a few races under his belt, I don't think it's necessarily going to tremendously affect him. But it is always the question mark not being able to train over the turf. Whether he's going to take to it, but he gives no signs that he won't take to it.
So touch on the dam, Corderosa and progeny. Has she had any horses that have qualified on the grass?
Yeah, so Laneway's dam Corderosa, her dam sire is Danzig, so a lot of turf pedigree comes through that. She never ran on the turf herself, but her first son was Ordiachete, who ran 13 times on the turf. He had 4 wins, 3 seconds, 2/3, and made just about 180,000, was just under it. But he had a lot of success on it. He competed at the allowance levels. So, I mean, based on that, when you see siblings take to it, you generally think that he'll take to it as well.
You've had an opportunity to interact countless times with Richard and, of course, his assistant son, Gary Mandela, and Taylor, who's a top assistant for the barn.
Yeah.
Where is this horse's cerebral aspect of his game? Is he a laid-back horse? Is he a little more on it? Is he easy to train? And how would you compare him to Tiz Magician?
Yeah, I would definitely think he's a little more laid back than Tiz Magician. But from what I've seen of him recently, he is developing more. He's becoming more professional. And just touching on kind of one thing that you guys talked about his height when he was younger, one thing Richard Mandela always said when we first got into him was he was just waiting for him to finally fill into his body. Instead of just growing up, he wanted to see him grow out. And I'll say when I was there on Thursday and I was there the Sunday before, it's definitely the best he's looked. And I think we all kind of said it in the post parade on the race on May 15th that he looks so well. And I think he's really starting to grow into his body and mind. And training wise, he was galloping like a professional out there on Thursday. And Taylor came by me and he said, he's sure ready to go. So, he's given all the signs to be ready to go today.
Have you gotten any word on what the instruction is today, or is there an instruction?
Yeah, well, I think the main goal is just going to be playing the break. They know he's got speed. They're not going to force it by any means, and that's kind of one thing. Having Flavian Pratt being one of the top turf riders, they're going to allow him to put him in the best spot. But the key is going to be playing the break and getting him in a good position.
All right, wanted to go back to Joe Mishak, and I'm going to ask Hannah for one more question as we head toward the gate. So make it good, Hannah. Make that question good, and one we can fully answer. Joe, currently today, how many partners do we have in on Laneway, my racehorse?
God, I think I pulled up the numbers today, and I want to say we're probably about 2,000.
2,000?
I believe so.
That is fantastic. I would hope that a vast majority of those 2,000s would actually be tuned in. And big shout out to CJC, cheering for Laneway and his owners from the heart of Kentucky. And Luis PR3, yeah, it looks like he's a Washington Nationals fan. I became a fan last year because of quite the underdog story. And I had this little conversation with Moran last evening. I don't think we're going to get baseball this year. So you better take in horse racing, take it all in. And, of course, for a nominal fee, you, too, can be part of ownership with myracehorse.com. So, Hannah, what's the final question here as we head to post?
So I'm anxious to tell you the question I've picked, but I will say I've had a lot of comments about my hat, which I really like. So please head to myracehorseshop.com. You, too, can get a hat. There's shirts. You can personalize it with the horses you're invested in. Really exciting, and who doesn't love all the swag? So this is a question from Steve Taylor. He did not say where he's watching from, but I like this question. How can you tell if a horse has pre-race jitters?
I'll take that. I think a lot of it, you can just look at their overall presence on the track. Maybe a horse gets a little laddered up. They tend to switch their tail a fair amount. Horses that aren't generally settled. Now, you take a look at the 8-horse, Munnings Pilot, and note the ears here. This horse seems pretty attuned for a horse making a second career start. As many of us have been throughout our lives, it's not the first date you go out with, it's the second date when you're aware of that other person and their surroundings. So I think the key is looking for a horse to look comfortable, just as you would in a new place and time. Horse that doesn't get hot, the tail swish, the ears back, generally are not favorable signs. So just kind of an exhale, if you will. Horses that seem nice and relaxed. And Tony Bryce, hey, glad to have you on board My Racehorse Ownership Group as well. So real quick, Hannah, who's the main threat to Lane Way? One horse, and quickly why?
Oh man, I don't know who I would pick. I guess the Baltus horse, in my opinion, maybe would be the threat.
Munnings Pilot. I think he's a great exacta companion. Joe Mishak?
Well, I'll change it up. I do like that horse as well, but I'm looking at the tote board and seeing the 3 horse get a little bit of play here. So something's telling me that foe might have a nice race in him as well.
All right, Joe Moran.
Yeah, I definitely say the 3 Eastern Ocean. I remember you were giving me a little bit of a hard time for not giving you that horse last time out. I singled him at 14-1. In a pick 4, he got stuck on the rail, just couldn't get through. There was an inquiry, but just wasn't enough. But he was a horse that actually worked with another horse in the Mark Lap barn, Law Abiding Citizen. Umberto Rispoli worked him that day, and he outworked Law Abiding Citizen, who's come back to run second to Axeman, then came back to win a nice allowance race the other day. So he's a horse that's going to improve, I think, again, but I do still think he needs to improve a pretty good amount to compete with Laneway numbers-wise.
Yeah, I definitely think that this race is so pace contingent, and my anticipation is that I think Laneway is going to get a comfortable trip. I couldn't imagine that the horse Munnings Pilot would give him pressure early. It's just not the style of the barn. All right, team, my racehorse. This is our opportunity to start the day right here on a Friday. Hannah, Joe, we'll be back to you. And of course, we'll bring Bruno DiGiulio back in for some analysis and understanding workouts post. So whatever you do, win, lose, or draw, don't go away. Let's get lucky with Laneway. Let's send it out to Frank Miramati for the opener live.
Macedonian Ruler to the outside. And they're off. Laneway came away smoothly, but it's Exhort who's hustled up. Eastern Ocean has plenty of speed. Talion is in the firing line, and Laneway will settle in a good spot for 2.5 off the pace. Then Munnings Pilot racing on the outside of Exeter. Frossard is third last. Macedonian Ruler is just outside of him, and another 2 to Tapetushin. Around the first turn, and it's Exhort opening up 2 lengths. Eastern Ocean settles in second. Another 2 back to Talion, racing on the inside of Laneway, 4 lengths off the leaders. Then it is Exeter racing on the inside of Munnings Pilot. Another 2 back to Frossard, Macedonian Ruler, and 3 more to Tapetushin. Heading to the half-mile pole, Exhort has been the controlling speed, with Eastern Ocean 2 back in second. Talion is the gray on the rail in third. They're followed by Laneway, inching up in fourth, 2.5 lengths off the pace, followed by Exeter inside Munnings Pilot. At the rail, Frossard has about 8 lengths to make up, asked to go now. Macedonian Ruler is also asked for a bit more, 3 wide, 2 in front of Tapetushin. They turn for home, and Eastern Ocean has overhauled Exhort, immediately tackled by Laneway. Eastern Ocean a 1-length lead. Laneway chasing with determination. 3 back to Talion in third. Eastern Ocean or Laneway. Eastern Ocean tough on the front end. Laneway 3/4 behind. Eastern Ocean, Laneway. Eastern Ocean wins it. A 1/2 length to Laneway. Then Talion, Exhort, and then a very close photo among 4 rivals, including Tapetushin, to complete the super high 5.
All right, Laneway, I'm going to call it a gallant effort. Kind of an interesting trip. I thought he was maybe going to be a little more proactive toward the leaders, but as you could all surmise by the trip there, Abel Cedillo was able to get first run, give him the slip. But all in all, I thought it was an okay effort. Obviously, we would much prefer to win, but a gallant effort nonetheless. They came home in 24-1 for the final quarter. But Joe Mishak, what's your take?
I expected the horse to be a little bit forwardly placed, but that all said, he had run and he had the right. So they got to go by him at some point. So he's keeps going.
Yeah, Moran, any thoughts in looking at it? Obviously, you were fearful of Eastern Ocean.
Yeah.
Kind of felt Eastern Ocean might have been a bit more too forwardly placed. Yeah. Obviously, he was in the garden spot. The other thing to take into consideration, the rails were at 20 feet today. Mm-hmm. And the theorists, especially here on the left coast, when those rails are at 20 feet, I mean, we got beat 1/2 length in the end with Laneway. But when those rails are 20 feet, it tends to be a bit speed conducive. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with the 1 and the 3 being a little more forwardly placed than at least I expected from looking at the form, I think that kind of, in Pratt's mind, he didn't want to get hooked 3 wide into that first turn, which I thought was a great decision when he was sitting in that position going down the backside. But I thought the most positive sign of this race was, to me, this was still the best race that he's finished. He kind of has a tendency in those previous races to not want to go by those horses, but he never quit this time and kept trying. Unfortunately, we just didn't have enough, but the winner ran very well, and he was very respectable in this spot as well.
Yeah, I feel like when this horse has an opportunity to actually see daylight, and he's given the opportunity to establish the lead, I believe he's gonna feel strong, like the lion in the jungle. But I don't think the horse that beat him today, Eastern Ocean, he's definitely a stakes caliber. Look for him potentially in stakes at Del Mar. I think the Ocean side would be too quick of a turnaround. But then again, it is 3 weeks away. Eastern Ocean for trainer Mark Glatt does a nice job as well, and in particular with his turf horses, showing a nice progressive run. So I would say at the end of the day, I think we'll come back with another respectable number. But Joe, Moran, do you feel like the turf moved him up, or do you think he maybe moved up an inch or about the same?
Yeah, well, personally, I thought he took to the turf fine, and I think one of the big things is that, like you kind of said, I think it's ultimately going to allow him to be more forwardly placed and proactive early on in races. So I have a feeling we'll come back on the turf, but ultimately we'll check in with the Mandelas post-race and kind of see their thoughts on what they thought and what Pratt said and how he felt on the track.
Yeah, well, I look at it as a positive because, as you mentioned, the one thing to consider in his 4 prior races, last time obviously he was able to get ahead in front. He gave up ground in each start until today.
Yeah.
So for me, that's a positive, and he might be in that situation where he is just kind of learning the ropes, and it was his first time ever on turf today. Obviously, he had gone long on the main track, but it was a good main track back on March 15th. So, yeah. All right. So, Hannah, we can't let people go away because we still have an opportunity, and we're going to talk to Bruno DiGiulio, talk about workouts, and we're going to touch again on Authentic. We have an opportunity to watch a replay from Authentic. Any quick post-race thoughts from the folks out there?
I'm seeing a lot of positive, and I can say for myself, you should have seen me. I was jumping up and down, really excited. I thought that was huge for Laneway. I really, I think, like you guys are saying, I thought the turf, he looked great on it. But really a lot of positivity after the race. They're all really proud of his second place effort.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. The main thing is he comes back safe and sound, and he'll still have an opportunity. And they say when you break your maiden, you lose your friends. So he's going to keep his friends around. Hopefully not too long. I mean, we're on career start number 5, but so he's had 5 starts, a second, and 4 thirds, and he's knocking on the door. Joe Moran, do you get the impression that this horse could maybe run to 1 1/8 miles, or do you think he's going to be limited?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely from seeing that race, I think an extra distance will be beneficial based on Into Mischief and history tells us. I don't think, past 1.25 miles will be in his range by any means, but of course, all horses are different. He is a big, scopy individual. So it seems like the longer he can get in his rhythm, the better.
I would agree. Okay, Hannah, you said that there's a good question. All right, I kind of read your sign language. Tell us.
Good. We can read each other. Sean Williams, how long does it take to typically for a horse between races? I think this is a great question that a lot of people have.
I think generally in a perfect world of imperfection with patient ownership, which we have through and through with My Racehorse and Spendthrift as a partnership, ideally 5 weeks. That's kind of the ideal time frame, unless you're putting a race into a horse. And I'm going to tell you, as a handicapper, Munnings Pilot, when he races next time out, make sure you put him on your stable watch. A couple of horses here that I think are interesting follows, but that one in particular because he ran in spots. But ideally, Moran, do you agree that 5 weeks is kind of that time, 5-6 weeks?
Yeah. I'll always say, 4 weeks, I don't mind either. You will see guys come back earlier if they're not going to work them and run them straight back if they're fresh. But generally, I like to see 4 to 6 weeks in between races.
All right. Well, to thank you all for those questions. We're actually going to welcome even more, but not before we welcome back in My longtime friend, a friend of, well, it's been over 20 years. Of course, many of you know with the works, Bruno DiGiulio, a lot of different trades, not only as a clocker, but as a horse owner, a breeder, handicapper, and dog trainer. Bruno DiGiulio, a salute to you and welcome to the My Racehorse Live here on a Friday.
I think I failed miserably at the dog trainer part. He just got up and he's making noise now. So, hey, I got to tell everybody out there, you got to be very proud. When the horse finishes like that, stretches out like that, and gives it his all down the lane, that's a win. He basically had the run. The winner had run on him first. I think next time out, maybe with an inside post, and you flip those. Lane's way gets a better trip inside, gets a save ground, gets to make the first run, and then he's the one being chased. And sometimes horses respond better when they're being chased rather than chasing. I thought he stretched out super. He did it well. Impressive looking individual, and I'm looking forward to his next start.
Great ad there, Bruno. And, certainly a horse that I think once he establishes some control, I think it will definitely build his confidence. We talked about this in the pre-race, that the fact that he ran into the likes of MAIDEN and Charlatan, who were just at the time bigger and stronger horses, he himself, he's definitely an alpha type that, he took a couple of hits to the jaw, but he's progressing. And the fact that he actually made up ground today as opposed to giving up ground, I think the positives way outweigh any negatives. And honestly, outside of the fact we didn't win, I can't point out a negative. So Bruno, wow, boy, you've been essentially a globetrotter of sorts as it pertains to the works as a handicapper, a clocker, which I've been fortunate enough to have not only been partners with you in the game, and we've had some good times, we've had some great times. Let's put it that way. But we wanted to kind of get into, and obviously with Joe Mishak and Joe Moran, and Hannah, I want you to stay right there because you got to keep an eye on the questions. But I wanted to get into the factors in which you evaluate a workout. And we'll have an opportunity. I guess we're going to bring up are we going to bring up Mo Mischief, or are we going to bring up Authentic first? Joe Mishak just left us. So on the fly here, let's go ahead and take a look at Mo Mischief. Bruno, this horse, of course, in training with Todd Pletcher, he's now currently in New York. This is a workout on the 1st of June. You as a clocker, I want you to walk us through this workout and give us your 2 cents.
Can you go back? Go back. I want to point something out real quick.
Absolutely.
If you just at the start, you'll notice the rider, he's on the outside with the rider with the blue and red. You see how the rider grabbed the hold and pulled back? Bo Mischief wanted to show his speed. He wanted to drop his head and go. You can see it right here. Now, right now, he's wanting to run away from the workmate. And the workmate is down on the inside who may not be as good, right there. The way he threw his head up in the air, he's saying, I want to go. It's like your dog tugging you when you take him for a walk. The reason he was held back is that you want those two to finish together. You first don't want to discourage the inside horse, but also you don't want to teach Mo Mischief that he wants to go, Mo Mischiefs to be able to go out there and do everything early. You want to teach him to settle down, and he did. He actually got into a good rhythm, and if you look on the gallop out, he really wants to run away from the inside horse. The inside horse is an insummation baby, and insummations are fast, so you could tell that Mo Mischief has speed. He doesn't have to do it in that time. He doesn't have to show a fast time, because as you're preparing babies, you don't need to go 35 first time or second time going 3/8 to prove something. It's not about proving anything. It's about having a foundation and understanding what that horse tried to do, which is run away from the pole early. The rider did a great job. He didn't get in his mouth. He brought him back, and that horse dropped his head and was able to drop. And what I mean by drop the head, literally drop the head down and relax. Horses with their head up don't relax. Horses with their head down do. So when he got him to relax, he moved really beautifully down the lane. And next time he's going to go a half. He's probably going to go 50, 51, 50 and 1, 50 and 2. Then he'll speed up the next half. And that's how you build up a horse. It's not about time.
All right. And in regards to Todd Pletcher, you've had an opportunity to cover him for numerous years now. And as far as his training technique, is this pretty typical for him?
Yes.
Noting both horses have a figure eight noseband, the drop figure eight. That's pretty customary equipment for him. Anything out of the ordinary? And at what point in this horse's workout regimen does he generally ask them for something?
I like the way the horse moved, and that's what you're going to have to look at. You watch the way the horse moves through his joints, through his whole body. It's just like watching a basketball player. How many of you watched Michael Jordan first time and go, he's a superstar? How many of you saw LeBron James first time and said, that's a superstar? It's the same thing with horses. They give you a feeling. What Mo Mischiefs give me a feeling is speed. He's fast. I wouldn't be surprised if he does. I'd be surprised if he doesn't win first time out for Todd. He's that kind of horse. Now, why do I say that about Todd? Todd prepares them from the gate. They have a fantastic foundation. They do everything right into their first start. He's expecting them to run their race. Where there's other trainers, like maybe a Papa Mandela, that takes 2, 3, 4 starts. It's about each person ability or what their desire is with that horse. With a Mo Mischief, now you go first time out. He's got that speed, but you got to get him there, and that's the important part. You'll see going through half miles, you'll see a couple of gates from him, and then you'll see him ready to run. All
right, so that's great insight from you, Bruno. And obviously, as a former trainer, with certain horses, as we train them week to week, in the midst of that week, obviously, we are also teaching them how to run in their gallops. I mean, unfortunately, the way the tracks are configured, it would be nice to be able to train a horse clockwise, which in Europe and Australia, obviously, they have their opportunities because of the direction they run. But I've always felt that it'd be nice to train horses in 2 different directions to strengthen up and balance out those muscles. So I'm going to turn the clock up here a little bit now. So we've had the non-starting son of Into Mischief, Mo Mischief, who is looking to start up at Saratoga in July, potentially. And now we're going to go to the experience. And I'm going to bring in Joe Mishak. And Joe can address some questions. And Bruno, the workout of Authentic, a grade 1 place son of Into Mischief, who is on the march to the Haskell. And, of course, we heard this week it was announced that they're going to offer up $1 million bonus for a horse that wins the Haskell, the Kentucky Derby, and the Breeders' Cup Classic, which I feel is well within reach. We just need a little bit of racing luck. But Joe Mishak, why don't you touch on Authentic as we cue up the workout and go back to Bruno and his analysis for that one?
Yeah, I think, we're going to have 2 segments here, and they're both of really, really nice graded stakes winners. And Bruno is kind enough to take us through both these workouts. Both horses, very good horses, but they do it in a different way. So we're rolling. So I'll let Bruno take over from here.
If you hear a bunch of clutter behind me, that's my boy Joe, my husky. He's decided to take a cup and run around the room with it. So what this work back on May 10th, I love this work. I thought this was by far, from a mental aspect, his best work. It's not about speed. It's not about how fast he finished. It's look how relaxed he is. The mental makeup on this horse right now with his ears flopping, enjoying it out there, not running off, not throwing his head up in the air. He is just really relaxed. And you watch the way down the lane, he really explodes. I love horses that can shut down, just literally shut down like he did, and then turn for home. You look at those ears come up. You see that left ear up? That's him telling the rider, hey, I'm ready to run. What do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? You see that left ear? I call that his ear is cocked. So now his rider is going to just shake the reins just a little bit right here, and this horse really stretches out. I love when horses put their legs just straight out in front of them. Look at those ears going back and forth. That's a horse that's listening to the rider. He is extremely athletic. He switches leads beautiful on the inside, and he really finishes strong. Now here, this is the end of the work. He's gone 7/8 here. See the way how he's finishing with more power? That to me tells me he has brains. And when you have a horse that has brains, that can shut down, kick, shut down. It is everything a good horse is. You don't want that horse that goes 59, 59, 111, 59, 59. You put 5 races into that horse. And Nick, you were really good as a trainer at that. You didn't want to use your bullets in the morning. And look at the way he galloped out. Look at the way he hit the ground. Look at the way he was relaxed. That to me was a sign of a horse maturing. And Authentic is extremely athletic to boot.
Well, and that workout, of course, was actually the 4th prior to the runner-up effort in the Santa Anita Derby. And as we saw the start of that race, he obviously veered to the right. And, he hooked into a horse that I'd have to say at this stage of the game is maybe just a step or two ahead of him mentally in reference to Authentic. So on that note.
Can I say something on that, Nick?
Yes.
That race with Authentic was, to me, more impressive than him running off to the lead and then getting caught by Honor AP. And I'll tell you why. Because he showed the ability of just, with his speed still, dropping his head and relaxing outside of those horses. If he would have ran, if he would have ran off after that and opened up 5 lanes and fallen apart, I would have been disappointed. But what he showed me is that he actually rated like he did in that gallop, in that 7 furlong, 128 gallop on May 10th. He did that, and that to me speaks. He's talking to me saying, "Hey, I didn't get the trip today, but I did everything right, and I still ran a good second."
Yeah, no, I would agree with you. And I think that when you go back and look at his first 3 starts, having won the Grade 2 San Felipe and the Grade 3 Sham, he was a little headstrong in those races. So the fact that he was able to shut it off. So for you as a clocker, as you analyze that workout on May 10th, the sign that day, based on the workout, obviously you've had an opportunity to see the future because we saw the Santa Anita Derby since that time. He actually did turn it off and then able to show that ability to exhale. And we talk about that often. And of course, if you're going to go the classic distance of 1 1/8 miles, you're going to need to exhale at some point. All right, Hannah, we've got a question for Bruno. Fire away.
From Charles, when do you look for bullet type works in a horse's workout regimen, or do you want to see bullet works?
I do not want to see bullet works. Bullet works are there's no statistical advantage of having a bullet work, because if you go 59 flat, let me just give you an example. You could go 47 and get a bullet work, but not get that time and get a 59-2. And it's a whole convoluted story. Do not look for bullet works, folks, because bullet works just tells you that the horse worked faster than the rest of the horses on that page. Well, what if those rest of the horses were claimers? What if the rest of the horses were on-raced horses? You've got to compare horses with horses on that tab. To me, bullet works are just handicapper jargon. They mean absolutely nothing.
Yeah, there's the old saying that it's not how fast they go, but it's how they go fast, and I think that's the reality. Just like attending these 2-year-old and training sales, and you're watching these horses in the breeze shows, you might have a horse that works 10 flat that looked every bit of the 10 flat. You may have a horse that goes 10-1 that looked as if he were going 10-4. So the reality is it's how they do it, not necessarily what the final time is. And just to touch on bullet workouts are the best work of that group that worked on that particular day. It's actually a bullet what you would see on the form. So
and that's a great example. At Saratoga last year, there was a filly that worked all out under the whip, and she got a bullet work, or she was vanned off. So the bullet works. You don't know if that horse is all out, and that's as fast as they can go. For folks out there, I've been doing this for 30 years. Do not put all your stock into bullet works.
All right. Well, the wonderful thing about what you do, Bruno, is that you actually have a publication that you put out. And, again, our ties go back to the days of today's Racing Digest. And, the tools that you offer up, to me, I'm always looking for, when someone's watching a workout, I'm actually looking for the expression. And, excuse me, I think with Authentic, you pointed out the expression with the left ear. And there was one message that came through from a fan that said, Authentic was listening for that cue, and indeed he was. And that's one thing I've come to find with the Into Mischiefs, who stands for 175,000 at Spendthrift Farm, that they're very smart animals. They're can't
very
shut themselves
emotional
down. Yeah,
horses.
right.
You can tell an Into Mischief, and I saw Into Mischief train for Richard Mandela as a 2-year-old, and I thought he was the best 2-year-old in the country, and as a 3-year-old. And obviously, he didn't get a chance to show what he could do as he got older. But they're very emotional horses, and you can see that in their body when they train. They're very, very willing. They want to go out there and please you. They want to go out there and run. And then, you know, you can compare them to the Tappets, who sometimes don't want to go out there and run, even though they're talented. Into Mischief brings you an authentic, no pun intended, ability of showcasing their speed and their emotional status in themselves. You can tell when an Into Mischief is doing very well. They show you.
All right, so we're going to take a look at another workout here, Bruno, and this is a horse that many have actually ascended to the top of their Kentucky Derby list, and that was your winner of the Grade 1 Santa Anita Derby in Honor AP for trainer John Sheriffs. There was a recent workout, yes, on June 17th, just 2 days ago. And won't you walk us through this work, a half mile in 53 and 2?
I came out of my chair when I saw this work. This is a half mile in 53 and 2. People are going to look at that. He's going to be like 19 out of 19 or 30 out of 30 on a workout ranking. But I loved what I saw. Here's a horse that came out of a race. His adrenaline is still going, and he is so relaxed. Look at the way the rider is sitting back on him. He's dragging the rider. His ears are flopping like this. He is just loving what he's doing. He's hitting the ground on a dime. He's sound. Look at him. This is a horse that I would sit out if I thought he was in a gallop. I didn't think he was even working. Look at those ears going back and forth, flopping around. He's got a long rein on him. He's striding out perfectly. By the way, Honor AP looks exactly like his mare, Hollywood Story. She had the same markings, the same look, the same body style, the way that she wasn't as big as he was. But look at him just be a happy horse going around. You don't need to see a 47. I see that. I put a big mark in my notebook. Follow that horse. And he's hitting the ground good. He's pushing off behind. His neck is cocked, and his rider hasn't moved an inch. To me, that is a 5-rated, 4-rated work just because of the mental aspect of being able to shut down and enjoy himself and hit the ground well.
Well, you know, it's interesting. You point out the fact, and, you know, we're all heavily involved in this industry and game, but in all frankness, with all due respect, Honor AP going 53 and 2, I mean, obviously he should be able to do that backwards, but the point that you look to the positive of the fact that he was coming out of a Grade 1 victory, he wasn't too keen, he's maintained his weight. I mean, the one thing that really strikes me is his presence in his weight and the bottom that he's held. And this horse had a little bit of a foot issue during the latter end of the winter, which in light of the whole pandemic for him, they have actually been a blessing in disguise. But no doubt.
One thing I can say, you get a horse coming out of a race that's that big and he runs that huge. Sometimes you get that horse coming out of there and they're working back in 2 weeks and he runs off into a 47 and you get, oh, he came out of it great. No. You don't want to go really fast after a race or a fast work 2 weeks, 3 weeks after a race. That is the kiss of death because then they do too much. Now you're trying to get back to freshen them up. Now you're trying. So every time when I see that, I love that. Next time out, he goes 48 a lot easier. But also Honor AP is the kind of horse that shuts himself down. You watch his solo works, you go, he's not going anywhere. He's going one pace. Yes, he's shut down. He just lets his body down. He just gets the exercise. He trains like a 5-year-old instead of a 3-year-old.
Yeah, no doubt. I would tend to agree. And it's interesting as you see these horses evolve, you know, kind of reminiscent of when we entered high school as sophomores into our junior year, into our senior year. And obviously that psyche, as we talk about, is something that you want to have on cue when it comes the first day of September. Of course, the Belmont Stakes, the first jewel of the Triple Crown tomorrow at 1 1/8 going one turn. And I wanted to go back to Joe Mishak on the note of Authentic. And what is the expectations in reference to the Authentic announcement and going forward? And what do we have potentially going on next week?
Yeah, so I know there's a lot of questions about Authentic, about when he's going live, different things about share prices. We're going to have a all Authentic Q&A session, watch party for you probably at the early part of next week. Watch, updates, watch your email. We'll give you, advance notice on when you can tune on. You can tune in, watch that show, and ask all your Authentic questions.
All right, that's excellent. And Bruno, referencing your looking at Authentic and comparing him to Honor AP, I see it this way. I see it as a mountain. And I get the impression that Honor AP he's right at the precipice of being on the peak. I feel like Authentic, he's on his way. And when Authentic hits that peak, you better look out. It may just come as soon as the grade 1 Haskell. And obviously with Spendthrift in that relationship, boy, wouldn't it be amazing if we were to get Money Mike on this horse and he were to win the Haskell and all of a sudden kind of turns the tables. As of today, would you say that Honor AP is your Kentucky Derby favorite, or do you think 'Tis the Law in tomorrow's Belmont? And have you had an opportunity to watch him train? And what's your anticipation? Who's the better horse, Honor AP or 'Tis the Law?
Let me go into Authentic. Didn't really learn anything from his first 2 starts.
Okay.
So where Honor AP, I think Honor AP is a little bit more mentally evolved than Authentic at the time because, John Sheriff's, he takes so much time. But I think Authentic didn't really get to learn much in those 2 starts going to the lead. And that is the problem in today's society that you have in the racing society is that you have people wanting to have horses win first time out. And that's sexy, that's great, but it doesn't teach your horse anything. And what it does, it doesn't really give you the season. Because you break your maiden first time out, then you got to go against winners. How much you going to learn against that? And if you're fast enough, you just run them off their feet, you learn nothing. I think Authentic is just now starting to learn what it's all about. Mentally and physically is physically, he's got it, but his mental is catching up to his physical. And where Honor AP may be already there, you just really got to look at it and say, Authentic is going to be a horse that's going to get better as he races because he's learning more. Now, as far as 'Tis the Law versus Honor AP, I think tomorrow the Belmont is really interesting. There's a horse named Pneumatic that's in there that I think a lot of from the Asmussen barn. 'Tis the Law is built like a sprinter. He's not a big horse. He stretches out well, but he's a compact type. I don't know if he wants to go that far as going a mile and a quarter on the first Saturday in September. Honor AP shows everything right now that he can shut down. He can take a trouble trip. He can take dirt in his face. He can do a lot of different things. So right now, I'll give the advantage to Honor AP, and I'll be watching 'Tis the Law and Authentic in his works coming up to the next race.
Yeah, no doubt. It certainly will be quite interesting to see how all 3 careers evolve. I still have my questions on 'Tis the Law. He obviously doesn't like to be inside of horses. He's going to get probably a great trip at 6 to 5 tomorrow. But speaking of the weekend, Bruno, coming up, as I mentioned, we've got 4 runners. We've got Sigismund, Power Up Painter, you talking about practice, and Bella Chica out on the left coast. But Sigismund, you have a long story with this horse, the son of Freud. I know he comes back for trainer Norm Cassie tomorrow at Churchill. What's the anticipation, and what should we be looking for with Sigismund?
Well, as a lot of people know, I bred the horse. I've always thought he's a really good horse. And we had him almost ready to run once, and he bucked his shin. We had to give him a lot of time. He was bone bruised. We brought him back. He was working great for Norm, and he ended up cracking a tibia. So now we had to back off. And Nick and you and I are very, very knowledgeable about tibia injuries. They're an injury that requires time, but they heal. It's the big bone in their back hind leg, and I think that was affecting him. He's come back better than ever. You know, he's a big, good-looking riding horse. He's got a ton of speed. I really think we're going to see a big effort from him tomorrow. I'm hoping that he can just go to the lead and just say sayonara, goodbye, good night, you know, and take off away from him down the lane. So I'm really excited about that. And he is a 4-year-old. He is a gelding. So, you know, but still, the sky's the limit. Let's get him win tomorrow, and let's see what we can do from there.
Would certainly kick off the weekend on a great note, because I think all 4 horses are ultra live. We've got 3 that they're looking to graduate. Before we let Bruno go, Hannah, were there any other questions for A1 Mr. Bruno DiGiulio?
Not specifically for Bruno. I'm not seeing any.
All right, so Bruno, I've got one last question for you. And I know all trainers are different, and I'm going to allow Joe Moran to come with a question as well. So think about it, my friend. When you're looking at a first-time starter, okay, first-time starter going 6 furlongs on the main track, running in a maiden special weight race, on sheer workouts, pedigree aside, what are you looking for as far as a first-out win bet?
Well, I'm going to have to violate your rule because I believe in history. I'll give you a great example. Yesterday, the baby race at Churchill Downs. There was 2 highly thought of horses, one from Brad Cox named Patty H, and the other one named Mad Maddie for Asmussen, 6-5 and 9-5. I love the first-time starter in there from the Dallas Stewart barn named Big Time. And he was he is a half-brother to a horse named Classy John that I loved first time out at Saratoga as a 2-year-old from Boleyn Farms 2 years ago on Travers Day. He had worked big at Churchill Down trackside, and he won first time out over there, paying around $16. Well, now here's his little sister. I know the connections. Boleyn Farms can get a horse ready, come into Dallas. He only has to do is put the finishing touches, and they run. So I start looking for history on the horse. Do I have any history? Do I have back works? What do I have on this horse? Now, if I don't have any of that, I'm looking at how they work from the gate. I'm looking, and I do look at the pedigree. What does this pedigree have? Does it have nothing but turf horses that they've gone on and done anything in the family? What has the mare done? Is the mare fast? Does she have sprint speed? So it's really kind of a package. So when you look at it and you say, well, Dallas Stewart is only 7% with first-time starters. Yes, but there's a difference there. There's a difference from where that horse is coming from. Nick, you as a trainer, you had horses coming in from certain places for your debut. You knew you would get from maybe a breeder. You knew you would get a horse that actually was ready-made. All you had to do is put touch-ups on him. You didn't have to do much. And then you would get horses from a farm that you knew you had to just start all over. That's the big difference. You get trainers that get horses from all sorts of venues, all sorts of owners, all sorts of farms. You know who you got over, and then you don't have to do as much. So you get them out of the gate, you get their gate card, you get them fit enough, and then all of a sudden, boom, they pop. Why? Because the history was there. Everything was done right to get them there. It's not just about being a fast-working bullet works, first-time starter, gate works. You got to have something to go by, and I have found that all my major scores is when I had history on a horse. And I scored well.
Yeah, I was hoping you just give me like a simple key that I can insert it into the lock, and voila, I've got Fort Knox. But folks, if you're just tuning in, you're watching the My Racehorse Watch Party. We just had an opportunity to watch the opener at Santa Anita, in which our very own Lane Way, which includes a partnership in excess of 2,000 friends and family, and I know I've got a couple of cousins that are actually involved in Lane Way, who put in a gallant effort in his 5th career start. He's never been off the board, showing good promise, finishing up for the first time on the lawn. www.myracehorse.com. It's as simple as that. And I can't say enough for the fans and folks out there that have made this an opportunity for all of us. And Bruno, I want to thank you for your time. You certainly enlightened us on a number of different areas. Joe Moran, did you have one last question for Bruno in reference to workouts?
I mean, it's sure hard to follow that one up now after you asked that question. But I guess I was just kind of brainstorming in my head and more what you look for when horses are stretching out. Generally, from what I've grown up when, I like to see a horse race a few times. But I figured that's what we were going to go to. So I'll let you talk.
Do I have time to tell you a quick story?
Absolutely.
Make it quick, Bruno. Make it quick.
Okay, well, that means 3 minutes for me. Well, Eddie Gregson, a long time ago, the late Eddie Gregson said, Bruno, watch the way I train my mile horses. And what he would do, he would let them run. He would basically work a mile. They'd go 27, 39 the first quarter or 3/8. And then he would let them run an eighth of a mile. He'd have the rider just give them the reins, let them run an eighth of a mile, and then bring them back. If they came back to the rider, they could do it. It taught me to look at here. It taught me to look at gallops, how the way horses move and how they learn. And they do learn. The ones that want to run off, and after you let them go after a quarter mile and you let them off and they go running the last half in 47, no. They won't do it unless they get everything their way. It's all about the mental part.
Yeah, and it's obvious that, I can speak, as having been a former trainer, that the one thing you try to accomplish is that, and it may be difficult in the larger volume barns, but being able to try and individualize certain horses. Now, granted, and Bruno, you can attest to this, the likes of Bob Baffert, Todd Pletcher, Chad Brown, those three trainers in particular, they have a set regimen. And it's one of those deals where, you have a plan and you abide by that course in action and hoping that those horses can jump through those hoops. Would you tend to agree with that?
Yes, I am more partial to treating each horse just like we treat people. We have to, you can't treat everybody the same way. I love when a trainer shows me something different. And a great example, Nick, when you train a horse to come from behind, you train a horse to sit behind horses. Brendan Walsh is very good with that. He'll sit horses behind horses. He'll make them open up and go in between. He'll make them go around wide. And then he'll put him from the gate and put him in front. Bruce Headley, I learned watching Bruce Headley. He was phenomenal. His 6-horse team drills. So it's really, I love watching a trainer mold a horse into what he thinks can be.
Right.
Teaching them those things. And not just putting them together, let them go head and head, and that's it. I really respect that.
All right. Well, Bruno, I'm sure this is going to be the first of many. We can't say enough for the time, and we appreciate that time and your expertise. And we're getting so many messages in from fans around the country, and this is a wonderful thing. Again, you can become a franchise owner for just a small share, a nominal fee to come involved and be part of My Racehorse Nation. So, Bruno, enjoy your weekend. A salute to you, my friend. As always, truly a pleasure.
Hoorah. Thanks,
Hoorah.
Senator. Thank you, Joe. Great to meet you. Joe Mishak, you don't talk enough. See you guys later.
Let's go to the
That is awesome. I was going to tell him to give Joe a pat on the head. All right, so Hannah, I know that you've seen the chain of emails that come through, or the messages, of course, but I wanted to hit Joe Moran real quick and briefly touch on our runners for this weekend and what the expectation is. You've got a minute and a half maximum per horse.
Was that following me? Sorry, you cut out with my internet. I just want to make sure.
I want to know about the runner. I want to know about the runner. We already touched on Sigismund. Tell us about Power Up Painter at Belmont. You talking about practice, Belichica at Santa Anita. What's the expectation?
Perfect. Well, I'm going to start with my Santa Anita horses since those are the ones that I see most often. Belichica, she's kind of been a horse that's never just run into the luck. We're waiting for that luck to finally happen. She always gives us her all. She draws a 12 post, which I think she's going to have to work out a trip, but she broke a lot sharper last time. So I think it's going to all come down to trip with her, but we know she's going to give her effort. And if she gives her effort like she has, she should be right in that, top 3 right there, as we've seen. You talking about practice, you mentioned it earlier. He had an eye-catching run first time out. He pretty much walked out of the gate. I don't know how else to say it. He kind of looked to the left from the inside. With the one ended up scratching, he broke from the rail. And I know you've talked to trainer Peter Miller along with me. He said he broke much better. He gave him a gate work out of that just to really get him comfortable in there. He said he was much better. Getting Flavian Pratt on the turf, a big bonus right there. And then lastly, Power Up Painter. I think we're all excited to see him come back, not just yet alone. First time gelding. He's always been a bigger, heavier horse, so I think the gelding should help him. It's kept him a lot fitter. And then also getting back on the turf. Painter, a lot of his offspring have taken to the turf. I still think he'll probably go long term. So I could think he could use this race not only as a fitness builder, but also just getting back into the swing of things. But I expect him to run well as well.
All right. Well, you covered that beautifully. And Joe Mishak, obviously, we're gonna huddle up in regards to Authentic and trying to kind of weave out what we may have in store. Do we have an anticipation of a day, perhaps, that we would have a watch party and have some discussions revolving around Authentic? Do we know a date potentially next week?
We don't know a date yet, unfortunately. Like I said, well, as soon as we do, we get all the parties involved. Looking at bringing on, Ned Toffee from Spenfoot Farm and getting schedules arranged. We'll send an email out to everybody.
All right, and of course, this is the Laneway My Racehorse Watch Party, as you saw at Laneway live earlier. And Joe Moran, you just received some information from Laneway's trainer.
Yeah. So we got a text actually from assistant trainer Gary Mandela, and he said, the barn really thought he ran well today. With the rails out, he said Richard kind of took the blame a little bit, and he told Flavian he didn't want him to go too fast early with those rails out. And first time going to the turf, first time getting back to the mile, he didn't want to put too much pressure on him, so he told Flavian just to make sure he gets him in a comfortable position. And he thinks ultimately that may have cost him the race. So next time out, I definitely think we'll see him a lot more forwardly placed like we expected here. But he said his stride was much better. He thinks the turf is going to be his future, which we kind of all agreed with after watching that race. And then most importantly, he's back at the barn. He looks good at the barn, and they're very happy with the way he came out of that race.
Yeah, I love the way he finished up. I mean, he's going to sub 24 seconds for the final quarter. And as we talked and Mishak touched on, this is a race where he showed forward momentum and the ability to actually, I wouldn't call it pass horses, but to gain ground.
Yeah.
And I think with a developing 3-year-old, that's exactly what you want to see. You don't want to see him fall back into that retreat mode. I don't think we have any questions of his effort because I felt that he brought his game and he gave up turf experience to the winner, who was probably an unlucky loser last out when he probably should have won for trainer Mark Platt. All right,
I think the big thing is, the big question going into this race was, does he handle the turf? We have the answer. He ran great on it. We didn't get the win. We wanted to win, but we'll march forward and hope we get there next time.
Yep.
All right. Well, I want to thank each and every one of you out there. And, of course, on behalf of My Racehorse, a special salute to Bruno DiGiulio for taking out his precious time. And Hannah, lovely as ever. I love the swag. I still haven't seen it at my doorstep, but I'll have a conversation with Michael Behrens in reference to that. Joe and Joe, great day today, folks. I mean, obviously we showed some progression, and a reminder, you too can become part of My Racehorse Nation, www.myracehorse.com, microshares, and we'll have more announcements coming up very, very soon, and look forward to potentially winning some races this weekend. So that's it for Friday, the Laneway Watch Party. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon and have a winning weekend.